All right, welcome back to Boots Come in Pairs, episode 7 here, as we're kind of getting to the end of the World Series. We're at, they're in game 4 right now. We kind of thought
Five.
5? We're in 5?
Game five.
That's true,
Game five.
yes. Yeah. Well, and you kind of thought after the first 2 games that if Arizona could have won that first game, maybe they take control. But we're going to start hot tonight. The bullpen game last night. I've said it multiple times on here now. I hate the bullpen game, and if there's ever one to put this thing to bed immediately, and it's not Torey Lovullo's fault. Maybe he just thought this was his best option. But worst case scenario with the bullpen game, because you start with Mantiply, who's one of your higher leverage relievers. He got through his inning. And then the second inning kind of a little shaky, and then you bring in Castro. Then he blows up. And then the first Nelson, he blows up. And then it's did Frias come in next? He blows up. And then you finally get to the second Nelson, Ryan Nelson, and they go, oh yeah, he was the 4th starter going into the year. And he comes in and shuts the door, and it's why not just give the guy 4 innings, and then if he gets in trouble, then you go to those leverage guys, not start, drives me nuts. Tampa Bay did it before. I didn't think it worked with them either. Bullpen. I said not to do it, and he did it anyways.
It's tough, right? I mean, if you do it with some level of success, you think that you can do it again, and you'd like to think just like any other bullpen situation. It's all right, just got to get through 3 outs, just got to get through 4 outs, just got to get through a few batters. Which is what the new rules kind of brought into place. And it's if you, it's like anything. It's like caffeine. It's the more that you have, the more that you want, and that's kind of just how it is. And it did not go in Arizona's favor last night, giving up 10 runs in the first 3 innings. I mean, pretty much put that thing to bed, at least in the early goings, with that performance. And I mean, reverse of that, you have Texas going to a more bullpen type game. Andrew Heaney has not been going extended innings in the playoffs, and he ended up getting through 5 last night with very minimal damage. He actually had an excellent outing, maybe his best outing in a Rangers uniform, and they kind of went to a bullpen game as well, and it worked for them until they blew up in the later innings. So
right.
I don't know, man. It's just sometimes it's a strategy that works, and sometimes it's a strategy that doesn't, and I don't know. I go back to the old days where you had 4 or 5 starters, and they were playing, or they were starting. They had a starter go every postseason game,
right.
And it's just not that way anymore. Just because of the nuances of the game, analytics, advanced stats, and all that stuff. But yeah, it's just it's confusing, and sometimes it's fun. And the Brandon doesn't agree.
It's not fun. There's nothing fun about watching a guy who doesn't start a game normally come in the first inning and okay, but what are you going to do after that? What's your plan? You're going to high leverage the entire game? It's because, again, you bring up it used to be, you had 4 or 5 starters. I get that you don't want to have 5 starters in the postseason because, you probably don't have 5 guys that are good enough. But remember Derek Lowe? Wasn't even going to be on the roster. And then what does he do? Pitches Game 7 versus the Yankees. Pitches Game 4 to win the World Series. And it's you never know what's going to happen. You said last night, I was texting you. I was hey, bullpen game, here we go. And you're oh, Heaney. I'm I didn't really view Heaney. I know he hasn't been stretched out, but he's been a starter his whole career. That's not a bullpen. For me, you're giving the guy a shot. And if he goes long enough, cool. But that's what I thought. Again, when you have on the broadcast, they're going, yeah, Ryan Nelson is their 4th starter. I'm start him. Let him just try, Worst thing is he goes an inning and a third and then gets hooked out of the game, and then you're in a bullpen game anyways. But to start there with a guy that's only going to pitch maybe an inning and a third, maybe 2, it just drives me nuts. And the commentary was, you deserve better when you get to a World Series. Nothing against the Rangers, but you deserve better when you're watching these teams.
So that's more so what you're saying when you're referring to a bullpen game, is when you're having really bullpen relief pitchers who are pitching, not necessarily a guy who is a starter or is capable of starter innings, like coming in relief and stretching it out. Because I actually just heard a stat about Evaldi when he was pitching during that 2018 World Series run for the Red Sox. Like he was initially, and he developed that postseason lore, the Nasty Nate lore. There was actually a game that he was supposed to start that he ended up coming in relief and going 6 scoreless relief innings. Technically, he didn't start the game, but yeah, I guess that's a different animal all in itself. If you have a starting pitcher who's capable of going more, it's not really considered a bullpen game, even though he may be coming out of the bullpen.
I've seen that, and I don't hate when, let's just say, you bring in a high leverage guy for the first inning because you want to set the tone, right? And it's like, all right, we're going to bring in our setup guy. And then we're going to bring in an Evaldi where you kind of like pair the two together. It's like, okay, and then Evaldi, you're going to go. Cool. I'm good with that. You want to get through the first inning. You want to get through the harder lineup the first time with relative ease. That also could blow up in your face, but that's fine. You know, I get that logic, but to go reliever, and you're going to expect 9 guys are going to finish that game and then you're going to win the game, I just don't see it happening. Like, you have to get to the 8th inning then where you can go Ginkel, Seawald for that to go perfect, right? What are the odds you're going to get there clean? And then it blows up. They have 2 5-run innings and it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. But, like, it's just not a recipe for success. I hope this dies here. That's my point.
It's like, not going to.
Regular season, I get it. You're in the World Series. How can you, I guarantee, and I don't know if Arizona's going to get back this far next year because it's just random that they're here. I guarantee they go get at least a 3rd starter and have Fott be the 4th starter then. But, like, they're going to spend some money on because Gallen and Merrill Kelly have been phenomenal. Well, Gallen's been okay, but they were 1-2 all year, and they were just a good punch. And honestly, I don't know why they're not going back to their 0-1 roots and just throwing those guys out there every game. Because now you got to win. Now you want to win at least 3 here to just make it up.
Did they have Madison Bumgarner at the beginning of the year and then DFA him?
They had the shell. They had the Madison Bumgarner Halloween costume. I don't know if they had Madison Bumgarner.
So I'm sure they were probably hoping that he would be 3, but he has not been himself for quite some time.
He was gone in like April or May. Like he
was gone.
Inning for them in a
he was gone pretty quick. He was gone pretty quick in 2023 for sure.
Yeah,
because he just wasn't himself. And I mean, Fott being a younger guy, I think he's definitely capable of being a 3 or a 4. I mean, he's pitched really well in this postseason. And at the end of last year, or at the end of the regular season, he pitched really well. I could see him being definitely a 3 or 4. But yeah, if they want to continue this momentum, unless they have, I'm not really familiar with their minor league system as much, aside from like Jordan Lawler, who's their top prospect. I'm sure they have arms. I mean, when you lose 100+ games only a couple years ago, you're probably going to have higher picks. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'll have to check out their minor league system to see where they're at and see if they have any guys who are closer to being major league ready in the rotation.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, again, I think they'll go out and buy it. But speaking of buying things, if we kind of go back into Game 1, because I felt like the D-backs had Game 1 pretty much where they wanted it. They brought in Seawald, and he made a really good pitch to a guy that got paid a lot of money. to Corey Seager. Yeah. Corey Seager was Corey Seager, and he has been this whole series. But he took a high inside pitch and hit it to the next county. But that's kind of why you get those players. And then Adolis Garcia ends it in the 11th. But I feel like, especially with the way Game 2 went, and they D-backs kind of blow them out. If they could have gone up 2-0 in Texas, even though they've been the Road Warriors, I think that we're looking at a different series here. Instead, we're looking at Arizona looking down the barrel at 3-1. No score yet, but that was just such a momentum shift. I thought that game was going so well for them. They had everything lined up, and it just kind of didn't work out. And I don't blame Seawald. I think that was exactly that was the pitch he wanted, where he wanted it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the guy I feel for ultimately in that game is Zach Gallen. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did struggle a bit early, and he has been struggling with his control quite a bit, which is not normal for him. He's normally like a 3+ to 1 strikeout to walk ratio. He's been walking a lot more people. But I wasn't really sure if he was going to make it even into the past the early part of the game, giving up those couple runs early. He really dug down deep and gave Torey Lovullo everything that he had, gave his squad everything that he had. Him getting through the fifth is impressive, just especially with how much he's struggled compared to what he's used to doing. And then you turn things over to your just lights out bullpen that you've been they've just been going above and beyond for you. And yeah, Seawald made the pitch that he wanted to make. He might have left it a little bit more over the plate than he would have liked, but yeah, Seager hitting that big bomb. And I mean, the Rangers to me are just on offense are just so impressive, and Corey Seager just being that all around great player, being that bigger shortstop guy with a great stroke. I mean, the biggest thing with him and the saddest thing about him is that we haven't gotten to watch him more, just with the injury history. And I mean, even the Rangers all year, like they flashed a stat up on the screen yesterday that just showed like how many games that key players on their team have missed this year. Like so many guys have missed time with various things, and for them to be where they're at right now, it's just so impressive. And yeah, I mean, just grateful that we're getting to watch some great baseball. Every single game in this series, there's been something unique going on.
Yeah, when Adolis Garcia goes out last night, well, 2 nights ago, but he was ruled out last night. Scherzer's done for the series with, I think, his back tightness.
It's a back strain, yeah.
But how about Jankowski coming in and like, okay, they said he's going right now. He's along for the ride, just enjoying the World Series run, and now you're like thrust into action. He had a couple hits, couple RBIs, and looked. Again, not the power, but like looked just as good. They said he's a good defensive replacement. So
yeah, TJ, and he also made a really nice sliding catch in the game as well, just contributing to that great Rangers defense that we've been seeing as well. And I mean, TJ's been a journeyman throughout his career, but he's always been that really scrappy guy, speed guy, pride in his defense, and it's very cool to see him step into probably definitely the biggest moment in his career and just shine and do well for a guy who probably would have won the MVP of this series as well if the Rangers end up winning the whole thing. Like he won the ALCS MVP. He probably is. This is definitely a huge blow for this Rangers squad not having Adolis for the rest of the series. But I mean, with the Rangers, they have enough guys who are hungry. You got Josh Young having a great series. Seager's having a great series. On both of those guys on both sides of the ball. Evan Carter, I think he's got probably 1 or 2 games without a hit or being on base. Like the guy is just shining as a rookie, as a 21-year-old rookie during this series. Marcus Semien starting to wake up a little bit on the offensive side of the game. Another guy that you paid a lot of money to a couple years ago. So while Garcia, his absence is going to hurt for sure, they just have so many guys who are just waiting to be that next guy up and waiting to be the next star in the series.
Right. And I think that's kind of the tale too. You didn't really mention any Diamondbacks there, because really the only guy who's been consistently really good is Marte, because is he on a 20-game hitting streak?
20-game playoff hitting streak. Not yet, but it's 16 games during this postseason. He's all 16 games, and then the last 4 that he was in. So 20-game MLB record.
Right. But yeah, to hit in every single game in the postseason, that's crazy. So, but other than that, on the Arizona side, Corbin Carroll's had some strikeouts in some key spots where it's not even swinging. Like he's gotten fooled, and it's like, Christian Walker had 3 hits last night, but before that, I mean, he's been atrocious at the plate. Defensively, he's been great, but you're not really talking about any Diamondbacks that are hitting really well. So yeah, all those names are kind of it's kind of lopsided, but that could change. I think we rode off the Diamondbacks versus the Phillies, and then all of a sudden they came back and stormed the castle. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see where night goes. If it goes 1 or 2 more games, I think that sets up for the Diamondbacks, honestly, because if you can go Gallen and Kelly in Game 7, like you should, or Fott or whatever, if you get to that Game 7, who knows? Texas might be a little weaker on the pitching rotation, especially with Scherzer going out. They might not really have an answer for Game 7, but I don't count out their offense, though. There's never enough runs that counts that offense out.
Yeah, I mean, I may not have mentioned the D-backs because any D-backs players aside from you just brought up Marte. But the thing with them is that they're scrappy.
Yes.
They're gonna bunt. They're gonna take a base. They're gonna string together hits. Like Tommy Pham, I mean, he's a guy who, I mean, he's got a lot of major league experience. Been a journeyman. He went 4 for 4 the other night. And had the opportunity to come in and get a 5th hit and be the first guy ever in postseason history in the World Series to go 5 for 5 in a game. And he approached his manager and he said, "Torrey, I want to give my last at bat to Jace Peterson, who's a fellow vet who may not get this opportunity again. I want him to get this at bat." And he sacrificed his personal glory to lift up someone else. So I'm definitely not counting them out. I mean, Lourdes Gurriel is such a talent as well. Obviously Corbin and Walker. I mean, they're it's just like, and you saw the fight last night. I think the series to me would have been over if it would have just been a blowout, but they just scratched and clawed their way back. And it doesn't even matter. Like the Rangers are still trying to win that game. By as many runs as they possibly can, but for them to scratch and claw and fight and make that a game later in the game is just impressive. I can't count them out yet.
No, well, and that's the catch. If Arizona kind of lays over last night and just doesn't really fight back, or if Texas doesn't keep their foot on the gas, I think that's a double-edged sword because they did come back, and that's why I hate again the bullpen game because you're out of it so quick. You let up so many runs that by the time your offense finally gets back into it, the game's so beyond over that you just don't know what to do. So, I think it was just a wasted opportunity, honestly, for them last night. But we'll switch gears a little. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about from the first couple games. That'd be the umpiring. Has been good and also bad. Game 2, and they mentioned it at the beginning of the broadcast. I had to look up his name first. Quinn Wolcott was the highest rated balls and strikes all season. And I'm like, hey, why is this guy not behind the plate for every single game?
Yeah.
Like, why do we need to rotate? So he has a phenomenal game too. I'm watching the K-Zone all game because it's like, and I know it's not 100% accurate, but he was nailing them. Like, ball in the corner, strike. Ball a little bit past the corner, not a strike, and he wasn't calling it. But he was on every pitch. And then you get to game 3, and Alfonso Marquez has probably the worst game you could possibly have. And that's where I just was sitting there going, like, if you have the best guy behind the plate for game 2, why can't you put the best guy for game 3 and game 4? And why does it have to be variable? I don't get it. The players get so frustrated. And I understand Torey Lovullo was pissed. And I get it. But it was just such a stark difference. And I'm starting to notice some of these things, especially when they start grading them and releasing the grades. But I'm like, I don't know. Were you watching game 2 like I was, where I was just watching the K-Zone?
Yeah, and I remember them bringing up that fact during the game that he was the best rated when it comes to calling balls and strikes. And that's why it's just like any other job, being held accountable. When you don't perform well, you should be reprimanded. When you do perform well, you should be rewarded. And the reward as being an MLB umpire is that you get to be in those high leverage situations. You get to be in spots of importance. They were talking about Walcott and that he's been doing this since he was 19. Yeah. He worked his way up. Him being behind the plate for game 2 was no coincidence. So the guy's worked very hard at his craft. He does a good job. That's one of the things that analytics is great for and video is great for, is that you have a body. Your body of work can be physically shown. Right. It's not just a guessing game. And again, someone like Angel Hernandez not being here it's a blessing. Yeah. And honestly, it should be like a showing to him that hey, you got to be good to be here. Yeah, you got to. It's not about how long you've done it. It's not about anything but your performance.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's just it was such a stark difference. But yeah, on the other, I said I would report back on the check swings. I feel like there hasn't been as many this series just because there's been more balls in play. Now, there's been a lot of weak contact, so I think that kind of takes it out. But there was one last night that, and this kind of speaks to it again. And Marte went, like he went past, but all of a sudden he's just jacked up in the head. And you need to be mentally tough, but like he felt like he didn't swing. They went down, and then yep, he swung. Again, I don't know how the umpire can see that. That's fine. But now he's out of the at-bat. He had a horrible swing on strike 3. He's done. But again, I think if you take that tennis approach where it's like we can instantly get it right, and then that player knows, hey, I didn't just get hosed on that call. I think he has a better at-bat after that. But again, he did it. He thought he didn't go. Call was made. He has no reassurance until he gets back to the dugout and sees that he went. I just think sometimes the players need the feedback instantly that like this was the right call. But yeah, not as much on the check swing, which has been nice. But if we go later in the series, I guarantee as it tightens up and the strikes become more crucial, we'll see a couple more. But we'll see. But yeah,
and it's a mindset thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like being in high school or being in little league. Like when you're somebody who knows the strike zone and you know your swing and you feel like you get cheated, you're not only mad at the umpire, but you feel like you need to go outside of yourself in order to create any kind of success. It's like, well, if he's going to call it here, then he's going to call it there. Oh. I remember when I was in high school, I was traditionally a very, very, I knew the strike zone. I knew what I could get to. I knew it was a strike. I knew what wasn't. My senior year, I struck out a lot on pitches that weren't even close to the strike zone. High school umpiring's brutal, but it's like, and in the situations where you're like a power hitter, it's pretty commonplace for you to lead your team in strikeouts and lead your team in walks. People are pitching around you, but me being a contact hitter and knowing the strike zone, leading the team in walks and being among the leaders in strikeouts, like doesn't really make a lot of sense in that regard. So yeah, I mean, when you know the strike zone, whether it's a check swing or balls and strikes, like it's just good to know, get that reassurance that you're right or wrong. Then you can kind of wipe the slate clean, start with a fresh approach in your mind, and battle if you need to battle.
Right. Well, the ball to low was the one, they called it a ball, but it was like, right, it was over half the plate. The one, it was from Fott, and it's like, as a pitcher, he's like, that ball was almost right down the middle, and you called it a ball, and it's like, and Lowe's kind of like, okay, I guess I'm walking now, but like, because it was either strike 3 or ball 4, and he kind of like turned like, okay, I struck out, and he's like, okay, I guess I'm going to first. Everyone else knew, and then Foss just like, what am I supposed to do? Like, it was right, it was so obvious, it was painful. But yeah, when guys are unsure of what's a strike, it changes the entire game. And I think the tolerance for, like, you're getting into a different topic with, the tolerance for the strikeout. I think the tolerance has gone way up. It's no longer a bad thing to strike out a lot more, especially if you're getting on base, it's fine. And which kind of stinks because I do like seeing more contact. And I thought this year was more fun because I feel like there was less swing and miss because you're not letting pitchers just gear up for every single pitch. But yeah, to that point, again, I think players just want to know what the strike zone is. And when they feel like they have a good idea, like Chris Bryant is a good example. He knows the strike zone. When he would complain, I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to Chris Bryant because he knows. And a lot of times he was right on. But the players know, and they just want a fair zone.
And same with Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper knows. Yep. He's a couple times drawn the line in the sand, and umpires don't like that, but he's right. He knows himself. He's been playing the game for a long time.
Well, they've done plenty of breakdowns with that where it's like, yep, it was exactly where he drew the line. Oh, gosh. But, okay, well, as I said, that's more topics for down the road, especially as we dive into, what the metrics are showing now and kind of what's tolerable. Because batting average has gone way down, but, people are still playing baseball. So, but yeah, now let's kind of talk about, this was what we were kind of saying last week with the way the Rangers are built and the way the Diamondbacks are built. And kind of why I'm rooting for the Rangers to win, because I want this to be the model, right? I want my team to spend and be competitive every year. Whereas the Diamondbacks, I saw an article today that's talking about why you shouldn't sleep on the White Sox because of the Diamondbacks. And it's like, you could be the Diamondbacks. And it's like the once in a 20-year run where you make it to the World Series on a whim. Like, and again, they're a grind out, good team, well-built baseball club, but like that's lightning in a bottle. And that's the exception, that's not the rule. I don't want to be the one and done, because who knows where Arizona's going to go from here. Are they going to spend? Are they not going to spend? Are they going to think, oh, that we can follow this model and win next year? I don't think it's repeatable. I want them to be Houston. I want the Cubs. I want the Cubs to be Houston, where you're in the ALCS 7 years in a row. And you're fighting for a World Series every year because you should. And that would be, I think the Rangers model is something that's more sustainable than what the Diamondbacks are doing.
Absolutely. And I mean, with anything, there are very, very few exceptions to the rule of teams that don't have to spend but continued success every year. I mean, the one team that comes to mind is the Rays. Like, they continuously just have the right guys, and that produces a lot of success in the playoffs and in the regular season. They've been I'm not even going to say fortunate. It's planned. I mean, their minor league organizations and coaches are good. Their scouts are good. Their organization and management is really good. They just have a knack for finding the right players, drafting the right players, having the right combination of guys year in and year out. But for everybody else, you got to get something. You have to do something. We kind of talked about it a few shows ago that all these teams, they have money. They all have money. There's really no salary cap, like you mentioned. There's just a luxury tax threshold. But these teams are worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Like, reward your fan base. Give them something to watch. Give them someone to root for. Like, obviously, it's very hard to win. It's very competitive in baseball right now. But you got to try. Trying is the biggest part. Your fans are your support system. So reward them. Reward them with something good. And if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. You go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. But yeah, what are the big dynasties? Yeah, I mean, the Yankees, how do they do it? Constantly buying, constantly adding. The Braves had a long run in the 90s. You know, you want to be those teams. You don't want to be... And the Cubs did it for 15, 16, 17. And then it's like started getting stale, and it's like, we need to, kind of break this thing up. But like, that didn't almost feel long enough for how long you suffer to get there. So like, you want that sustained success. You want that to continue and not just be, the one-off, okay, we got one, and now we're the Marlins, where it's like, we spent 1 year, and then we're going to be horrible for 20 years, and then we're going to win another World Series, and then we're going to be horrible again. It's like, that's so hard, because baseball is a regular season game, and then you get to the tournament, and you see what happens, right? And you got to be hot at the right time. It's like, who's playing the best baseball right now? Well, it's been Texas, and it's been Arizona, but you got to get to this point, and I just don't, when you don't have the team to do it, it just doesn't. You got to make every effort in the offseason to get there. And if it doesn't work out, again, it doesn't work out. But I just don't like the lackluster approach sometimes, or the thinking you can be smarter than the game. It's like, no, if you're in that market and you have that team and that money, be that team. I want to be the Rangers.
At least try.
Yeah.
Like, that's all we ask, is that you try. If it's ultimately up to the player whether he wants to take the most money, or maybe there's a particular club that he's always wanted to play for that has some sentimental value. I mean, we'll look at Dansby Swanson, always wanting to, if he wasn't playing for his hometown Braves, he wanted to play for the Cubs because of the value he had tied to that. He was always watching them on Turner with his grandpa, and that was the other team that was really on his mind of who he wanted to play for if he wasn't a Brave. So, to just keep beating a dead horse, like, at least try. This model has proven to work more than it doesn't. You got to have that good mixture of guys you pay for, guys you develop, and then just that little bit of lightning in a bottle when postseason comes around, because it's a whole different set of rules when it comes to the postseason. It's that grind it out. You're going to have to do things that you wouldn't normally do, things that analytics would say not to do. But yeah, I mean, it's been a cool recipe. The two teams being a little bit different, and getting to this end in a different way. But I mean, for us, kind of what we were saying since the beginning, like we always really liked the Rangers and the things that they've done, and if they close it out tonight, they do. If Diamondbacks can grind a couple more out, that'll be fun as well. But it's been great. It's been great to watch.
Well, it's a copycat league. They all try to trend the same way because they want to be, just like the last one. And when like I said, the Cubs were doing it, the Astros were doing it. You tear it down, you build it up. And I think Baltimore did that. And you kind of saw that come to fruition this year. But it's been a long process for Baltimore to get there. Do you think they want to go back to the rebuild days either? No. You want to stay here. So how do you stay here? You continue to build, but you also continue to add. And I guarantee Baltimore is going to go out and sign somebody because they think they're whatever short too. And if Arizona doesn't, you're going to find yourself, because they barely got in the playoffs, you're going to find yourself in last place in the West looking up at these other teams that are willing to spend more than you are if you don't do something about it. Let's just say, someone gets hurt or you just don't have the magic. Because we talked about Moreno a couple weeks ago. Without him in the lineup, they were like 20 games under 500. So you take away one guy like that, they have a different season. They're talking about dismantling and going a different direction instead of being in the World Series. So, yeah. Or you end up in purgatory like the Brewers.
And honestly, the ultimate way that you add and that you become a more attractive destination is by winning. I think people will, upcoming free agents will see, like, hey, I really like how this team's managed. I really like how this organization's run. They have a lot of fun young players. They have a lot of cool veterans. Like, I want to be part of that culture. I want to be part of that team. So I think Arizona, if they're willing to spend, teams are going to be attracted to that. Yeah. Teams are going to want to play with Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte, and they're going to want to play defense behind Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen. Like, they're going to want to play for Torey Lovullo and play for this organization. So, yeah, I mean, the success is definitely going to sway in their favor for sure.
Yeah. Well, we talked about Corey Seagers, and you brought up his health. And I really think, because when he signed there, we're kind of like, what's this guy doing? Why are you signing with Texas? But I think really where Texas was at in their present state allowed him to get healthy. And I know he still missed some time this year, but like he was coming out of LA and really banged up and wasn't playing much. Chris Taylor was starting most of their playoff runs at shortstop, and then Machado had a run. But like he was there, he won with them, but like it seemed like when they needed a shortstop the most, it ended up being Chris Taylor. But I think it allowed him to, all right, we're going to build around you, and they did. And you're seeing why he's there first off, but like just the commitment level he had to put into that as well. And then, you got to have players buy in. And they still don't have DeGrom. they don't. They keep zooming in on him. I'm like, gosh, if they had DeGrom, this would just be over. Like,
he missed 130 games. More, maybe more.
Yeah, and they paid him how much money? It's crazy. That's what happened, and they're still where they're at.
Yeah.
But that's what I want for the Cubs. And that's, again, hopefully in a couple weeks we get to see, who's actually available, what the hot stove looks like and who they can add. And hopefully they are adding. Again, I keep hearing the names attached to them. And the more names I hear, the more excited I get, because it's like, I want them in on every single player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, Dansby's out there recruiting. Everyone loves him. They know he's about winning. He's not about to roll over and have a miserable next 6+ years with this team. He wants to have fun. Chicago's much more fun when we're winning. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what direction they go. I hope they can keep some of the familiar faces around. I would love to see Bellinger back in a Cubs uniform. I envision him heading out to the East Coast, though, for some reason. I think that would be a huge mistake. But, I mean, we'll kind of see how that ends up wrapping up. I know Dansby's going to do his best to get them back to where they need to be.
Yeah. All right. Well, any other World Series notes before we move on to the next one?
Yeah. I guess question for you, and I'll kind of answer with mine as well. Has there been anyone who's been like a pleasant surprise to you? Maybe someone that you didn't know about, or
Hmm.
someone who's kind of like uh performing in a different role, or like who has been like pleasantly surprising for you like in this series?
Hmm. I think you hit on it earlier. Josh Young
Mm.
playing out of his mind at third. I knew he was a rookie, but I kind of forgot at the same time. But his defense has been phenomenal. Is he in the Gold Glove conversation?
I'm not sure,
I
but
mean,
he was an all-star. He
yeah,
was one of their six all-stars. But yeah, he's pretty special. And he's a
he's
top prospect as well, so he's pretty good.
he is no longer a prospect. Let me tell you that.
Yeah.
He's fun to watch, and just I mean the amount of ground balls, because that's the thing with Arizona is they put the ball in play. They a lot of ground balls. He has made a lot of really good plays at third base, and his hitting again it's been there because Texas is killing the ball right now and they're scoring a ton of runs. Although no hits tonight so far through five, but so again, everyone's hitting in their lineup, but his defense has really stood out to me more than anything.
Yeah, I mean them and the defense has been incredible.
Yeah,
This might be the best defensive World Series that I've ever seen.
yeah,
Like just both team, and that's what happens when you get the top two defenses in baseball
yeah.
under the same roof for 7 games. Like they're going to make some insane plays, double plays, throwing guys out at the plate, outstanding plays up the middle. Like it's been a treat getting to watch these teams go out there and field. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy.
But I would say before this series, the only thing I knew about Josh Young is that you said his name Young and not Jung. So that's probably, that's probably the only because again you don't watch Texas, so it's just
Mhm.
But that's probably the biggest takeaway I had
Yeah. Like
beforehand.
if you're not paying attention to the minor leagues and you're not paying
Right.
attention to the top 100 prospects, like he was one of the best in baseball. Like again, as a prospect, like one of the best in baseball. Like top, I think he might have even been top 10, possibly. Definitely their top prospect, both sides of the ball. But yeah, his he's been very impressive. Fun to see these younger guys really perform.
Hmm.
It's super cool. I would say that my person is John Gray.
Mm.
Um, he would probably be their fourth starter in a healthy, maybe even fifth starter
I
in a
feel
healthy
like
rotation. If you're healthy, you got Degrom, Scherzer, Evaldi, Montgomery, and then Gray.
hmm
Gray was the other guy in that big free agent class with Semien and Seager. He has great stuff. He's always had great stuff. When you pitch in Colorado,
Yep.
it's that stuff becomes more hittable. Or maybe he just wasn't the guy that people thought he was going to be, being the one of the top picks in his draft class out of Oklahoma. But I think his poise and his just ability to throw strikes in this series in relief have been huge. He came in after Scherzer went down, I believe. Is that right? I'm pretty sure he did. Let me look at this. Yeah,
Last
yeah.
night,
After Scherzer went down, Gray came in through
last
three
night, yeah.
scoreless innings,
Yep.
and he really that's a tight game too. That's a three to
Yep.
one game. And I mean, he came in, shut the door during the World Series. He's gone about 5 innings and a couple relief appearances, given up only a couple hits, 7 Ks, no walks, but just throwing strikes and doing what needs to be done for the team. More of a subtle guy, not someone who's really making headlines, but I mean, just the
Well,
times that he's been in have been impressive to me.
he throws 96, 98 though. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
I get where you're at with this stuff because, yeah, when he was in Colorado, I had him a few times in fantasy, just as a back end guy. He had a good year and, he signed for a bunch of money. I didn't really think he would get that. So, yeah, he's no slouch. It's not like he's a
No,
random guy. So, the fact that he can figure out on the biggest stage that, like, hey, he's still got it and kind of prove that he still should belong in a rotation, I think that's what he's kind
yeah,
of fighting for. But yeah, he's been
yeah.
very good.
Yeah. He's been great, and I mean, again, he was the 3 starter for most of the year. Had one of his better years as a pro, but still not great. What at least what he's capable of doing. But yeah, I mean, I've been pretty impressed by him and watching him come in for Scherzer after he went down. Just again pounding the strike zone.
Yeah.
That's great to see. Uh, Obviously, great to see the fastball velocity and the wipeout slider that he features. But yeah, I mean, he's been really, really, really impressive to me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, if the Cubs would have signed him, he probably would have let up a bunch of runs in the summer at Wrigley. But that's the risk
Yeah.
you run. I
The
can't
the
remember.
air the
Was
air
it-
is not the air is thin.
Well, when the wind blows out, was it? Who did the Cubs sign from Colorado a couple years ago? It wasn't Jason Marquis. Maybe he may have pitched in Colorado too, but
I think it was.
they've done that a couple times. No, it was a short guy. This would have he threw a lot of Chatwood, Tyler Chatwood.
Oh, chat. Oh, he
Chatty.
threw nasty stuff.
He had a nasty curveball, but that nasty
He was
curveball
throwing like
also
he was throwing
went
like 90.
way out.
Yeah, like he was. There were times where like he's throwing
Yeah.
like a slider at 90. Like Tyler Chatwood was nasty, but yeah, when he wasn't on, which was most of the time,
Yeah,
he got smoked.
he was five. I remember he was 5'9". Just looked like a little guy. But that was another like, do you take a flyer on the guy? Because it's like, is it
Yeah.
Colorado? Is it the air out there? Well, apparently it doesn't help.
He
Chris
might
Bryant
not have been
numbers.
tall, but man, that lower half, he was thick.
Yeah, no, I don't. I never questioned the guy, but his ERA definitely didn't go down coming to
No.
Wrigley.
No, it didn't.
Oh, Chatwood. Oh boy. But yeah, well, like I said, I don't want to jinx him, but Gallen's throwing a no hitter, so 1 walk.
We're still at zeros.
Still at zeros, so I think that's the fact that he got out of the first inning this time is
Yeah.
a major improvement because he's had the stuff. It's just literally been getting off the ground, but he's
Yeah.
been grinding through his starts. But yeah, I think if Arizona can get through this game, get to Merrill Kelly, who in my opinion has been the best pitcher in the postseason.
Oh
on
yeah,
either side
easily.
of any he's
Yes.
been dominant. You get him in
Yes.
there, you win Game 6 too, and then Game 7, everybody's going.
Throw the kitchen sink at it.
Yeah.
Bullpen game.
Bullpen game, yeah. if they go to 7 games and do a bullpen game, I will lose my mind. Like, just give it to it. Just hand it to Texas at that point. But yeah, I will say though, yeah, Texas being a better defensive team, because if you remember back to that 2011 one where they lost to the Cardinals,
Oh,
why did they lose?
Defense.
Defense. So was it Nelson Cruz?
Nelson Cruz playing
Yeah.
right field.
Forever but like he catches that ball, it's over. We don't have to hear about St. Louis winning another World Series, but that I think that's been the approach from both sides. I think that's where the Cubs are building too, and that's where you kind of need to start your team is like defense first, hitting will come second, and then pitching, and just fill in the gaps. But a lot of these teams are building around that defensive part that the White Sox are not building around. So that just goes to show you, yeah, where you should kind of focus your energy and where it shouldn't. But yeah, the defense has been phenomenal on both sides.
And defense cannot be emphasized enough in this game. And I'm glad that they're shifting more back towards that like contact approach and not that homer or bust approach. Because it's like these hitters are too good, they should be feasting. Like if mistakes are made, and they do, and the pitchers pay, and the bullpen pays, and ultimately your offense pays because you're having to score a bunch of extra runs that you shouldn't need to score. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of more contact and gritty plays and stealing bases. Like it just puts more of an emphasis on your defense and how tight you need to be. And again, these two teams like not giving any extra outs, helping their pitchers, helping their offense. Ultimately, it's just fun. It's fun to watch, and I'm glad these two teams are performing like they did all season.
Well, that's where I think Arizona's lost a little bit there. They kind of got it back last night when they were stealing more bases, but like, yeah, they hadn't stolen a bag in 2 games. It's like that needs to be a part of your game at all. But maybe you're not getting as many guys on, or when you're winning a game, you're not stealing as many bases. But pushing the envelope is kind of in their DNA. So when they're not doing that, things are kind of off. So they definitely need to keep doing that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, next week we're gonna try and bring John Shenning back on and get his analysis on everything that's going on. We got him the kind of beginning of the playoff feature. We'll kind of get him the ending and see, because we'll have a result by then. We might have a result tonight, but we'll definitely have the end result by then and see if maybe his feelings of the White Sox have resurfaced. No, we won't. We won't push that. We'll push him on to good baseball things and again just give him a chance to respond to any of his previous comments. So that'll be fun. But yeah, if you're not following or subscribed to our YouTube channel or Spotify, you can get on those. So this will be our 7th episode now, so we're getting some content, and then we got some other people coming in that we'll see if we can get them in the rotation soon.
Absolutely. Yep. Again, appreciate the support, guys. Just looking forward to more awesome baseball conversations to come.
Yep. Yeah. Off season, we'll actually. Again, we kind of got some things that we've wanted to talk about, but we want to stay current on the current baseball climate. So we'll kind of dig deeper on some of the roots of kind of our baseball traditions here. But for this week, it'll be, Who's Coming Pairs. Thanks for listening.
Peace, guys.